In light of recent events in Paris, it has become evident that public opinion of Islam has become a controversy. To make this issue even more relevant and poignant, the Paris attacks have raised questions about the safety of allowing Syrian refugees into the United States, as at least some of the terrorists in Paris were disguised as refugees. While some would argue that Islam as a general rule promotes violence, others would attest that it is only a subgroup of Islamic individuals who pursue violence in the name of their faith. But what are the arguments for these positions? There are certainly people focusing their attention on proving that Islam culture is inherently violent. For instance, a writer for Answering Islam, a Christian-Muslim dialogue, published an article citing 10 reasons why Islam is not the religion of peace. In his article, James M. Arlinson stated that Muhammad nicknamed his weapons as one would a beloved child or pet. He included the fact that the Quran commands that adulterers should receive 100 lashes, permits husbands to beat their wives, and asserts that the hands of thieves should be cut off. But do these principles and actions influence modern-day Muslims? It's no secret that the Islamic State, better known as ISIS, was responsible for the attacks in Paris on November 13th, which killed at least 129 people. A Charisma News article went as far as to say that since 9/11, 27,000 attacks globally have been connected to Islam. There is also no equivalent to Islamic terrorist groups such as ISIS, Al-Qaeda, the Taliban, Boko Haram, Al-Shabaab, Hamas, and Hezbollah. In fact, the researcher Daniel R. DePetris asserts that the 5 deadliest terror groups in the world are all Islamic. As evidenced by the positions taken up in this debate, there's a clear divide between those who believe that anger and violence is central to Islam as a religion, and those who believe that Islam is, at its core, a peaceful religion. Sam Harris, philosopher, neuroscientist, and the author of the book Waking Up, claims that at the moment, Islam is the motherlode of bad ideas.
Just imagine some concentric circles here. You have at the center, you have jihadists. These are people who wake up in the morning wanting to kill apostates, wanting to die trying. They believe in paradise. They believe in martyrdom. Outside of them, we have Islamists. These are people who are just as convinced of martyrdom and paradise and wanting to foist their religion on the rest of humanity, but they want to work within the system. They're not going to blow themselves up on a bus. They want to change governments. They want to use democracy against itself. Those two circles arguably are 20% of the Muslim world. Okay, this is not the fringe of the fringe.
What are you basing that research on?
A bunch of poll results that we can talk about. So to give you one point of contact, 78% of British Muslims think that the Danish cartoonist should have been prosecuted. 78%. So I'm being conservative when I roll this back to 20%. But outside of that circle, you have conservative Muslims who can honestly look at ISIS and say that does not represent us, that we're horrified by that, but they hold views about human rights and about women, about homosexuals that are deeply troubling. So these are not Islamic.
His ultimate point is that we are misled into believing that, although radicals perhaps make up the smallest statistical portion of Islam, at the center of this religion is an acceptance for radical and violent views. Bill Maher even goes to say that Islam is the only religion that acts like the mafia and will kill you if you say the wrong thing, draw the wrong picture, or write the wrong book.
However, despite these actions carried out by some Islamists who defend themselves with the pages of the Quran, the majority, 1.2 billion Muslims as of 2001, are peaceful. If Islam is truly a religion of violence, then the followers would likely cause a problem greater than those that we face today. Islam may just be a tool that is being used by the wrong people. Yes, there are commandments of violence in the Quran, but the Prophet Muhammad found himself in the Arabian Peninsula when it was war-torn because of the rivalries between tribes. Some believe it may be justifiable that a book written with this historical backdrop has violent sections. Muslims are ordered by God to slay the enemies wherever you find them. Extremists like the ISIS terrorists in Paris do not include the exhortations of peace, which in almost every case follow these more ferocious passages. Thus, if they let you be and do not make war on you and offer you peace, God does not allow you to harm them. Also, hostilities must be brought to an end as quickly as possible and must cease the minute the enemy sues for peace. Further evidence of the peaceful nature of Islam is Indonesia, a country that is not classified as a center of terrorism, but has the largest Muslim population in the world. A significant amount of terrorism is rooted in the Middle East, where the effects of colonialism and modern warfare have ravaged the land. Afghanistan has not seen peace since 1978. In 1953, Iran had a democratic revolution and elected President Mohammad Mossadegh, who was ousted by the American CIA and British M16. Furthermore, the Taliban was originally founded and trained by the United States to fight the Soviet invasion in the 1970s. In the view of many Muslims, the rise of violence is a direct result of Western influence, which should not be confused with the teachings of Islam. Terrorists are using the Quran to channel their anger, but in doing so are muddying the message of the religion. Some believe that in Islamic marriages, domestic violence is prevalent. They claim that the Quran encourages malevolent behavior towards women and view it as the gateway to the high percentage of domestic violence within Islamic countries. Islam believes it is important for women to learn religious education. Historically, the Prophet Muhammad believed the women of Ansar were courageous for their persistence to take part in religious education. Employment of women is also acceptable within the Islamic culture.
But again, this is the problem, is that you make these facile arguments like that women are somehow mistreated in the Muslim world. Well, that's certainly true in many Muslim majority countries like Iran and Saudi Arabia. Do you know that Muslims have elected 7 women as their heads of states in those Muslim majority countries? How many women do we have as head of states in the United States?
Reza, be honest though, for the most part, it is not a free and open society for women in those states.
Well, it's not in Iran, it's not in Saudi Arabia, it certainly is in Indonesia and Malaysia, it certainly is in Bangladesh, it certainly is in Turkey. I mean, again, this is the problem, is that you're talking about a religion of 1.5 billion people, and certainly it becomes very easy to just simply paint them all with a single brush by saying, well, in Saudi Arabia they can't drive, and so therefore that's somehow representative of Islam. It's representative of Saudi Arabia.
The word jihad, the holy war, is in the Quran only 41 times. Mercy, peace, and compassion are mentioned 343 times. The recent attacks on Paris, as believed by many Muslims, like Zainab, a member of the Vigil in Britain, and many others at similar events, are not a true reflection of Islam's message. It is important to keep the numbers in perspective. There are various Muslim voices that scream out for violence, as well as millions that cry for peace.